early here. We're actually scheduled to start at the top of the hour, which is in a couple of minutes rather. So just sit tight. I'm going to start in just a minute. I will have another sip of coffee before I start. Just checking with my cohort here. Are you seeing it live?
Yep.
Okay.
See it on Facebook.
Good.
Don't see it on YouTube yet.
We have to refresh the page. Got it? So we're going to get started for real in about 2 minutes here, folks. We're all set on this end. Just wanted to make sure that our streaming was working and we are good. So we'll see you in about a minute and a half for the real thing. I think they'll come up the side. You'll see live chat. Yeah. I'll get everything muted. Be good. Sip it good. I saw that. Yeah, good strong espresso coffee. Keep me awake for the next hour. It's funny because, until March, I was touring a lot. And there's this phenomenon I always find just before I go on stage, about an hour before the show. I always feel like I could sleep until the next morning. I'm just bagged. I'm tired. And I don't know why. I think it's just a psychological thing. And maybe, lack of sleep on the road. But it happened today. I mean, I slept well last night. Had a busy day, but anyway. Sure enough, about an hour ago, I had to lie down. But I'm fine now. And you get close-ups of me sipping coffee through the microphone. Isn't that nice? All right. It's 8 o'clock in Nova Scotia, and a lot of different times all over the world, wherever you're watching this. This is a special presentation. It's sort of mostly a concert, but we would like you to feel free to ask questions, because this show is being sponsored by the guitar department at Dalhousie University here in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So their director, Doug Greach, puts together a concert series every year. And of course, this year the concert series had to go virtual. So that's good. I've done a lot of these virtual shows, so it's worked out really well. So be sure to, if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and leave a comment in the chat section. If you're watching this on Facebook, leave a comment. My better half, Brooke, is sitting here and she's fielding your comments and questions. So if you have something, that could be useful to the Dalhousie students that are all watching this show as part of their requirements for their guitar course, that'd be great. I'd be happy to answer questions about guitar playing and music, and if you have more specific questions, please fire away, okay? I'm going to start off with a tune that is probably the first time I ever tried to write a hip-hop inspired guitar tune. And it's a tune I wrote back in the 90s, and it's called Afraid to Dance.
Request right away for a little more volume, please.
Okay, more volume. Well, that's a good problem to have. Usually with these streams, things are too loud. So I will boost it a little bit. I don't want to go into the red here, so we'll try our best. All right, should be a little better now. Yes, so that was Afraid to Dance. And for those of you who are interested in such things, the tuning is not too far from standard tuning. From low to high, it's an E on the bottom, like you would normally find. On the fifth string, I've gone up a whole tone to B. Your fifth string can take it, believe me, it's all right. Now, the fourth string, on this tuning, it's still a D. That's right, it's okay, no worries there. All right, so we got E, B, D. So far we've just changed one string. Now, the third string goes all the way from a G down to an E. So that's really unusual. Normally that's the G that's there. We're all the way down to an E. And then the top two strings are like standard tuning. B, E. So we have E, B, D, E, B, E. Whereas I tend to call it Porky Pig tuning. So E, B, D, E, B, E. Yeah, so, and the cool thing about the tuning is that you end up with kind of an automatic E seventh chord sort of thing, but there's no third in it. It's E's and B's and a D natural in there. So the D is the seventh. And so it lends itself really well to sort of blues-based music language. So blues, of course, has a flat seven sort of built into all the chords usually. So happy to take a question or two. Brooke, has anything come in?
Yeah, I've got a couple on the YouTube channel. I'll try and get to everybody here, so just bear with me. I'm taking notes. You guys all type very fast. Hand of Doom 21. I love the name. Would like to know how you come up with the names of your songs and album titles like Breakfast of Dogs.
Oh, Breakfast
Epic. Yeah.
Breakfast for Dogs specifically, that album, I remember when I was making it, I kept thinking that I was going to sort of have a theme to the album. I don't know why. It just seemed like something I should have a theme. So I thought I should have, sort of all tunes that all sort of were in one direction or another, or were all based on certain events or whatever. And in the end, I ended up just recording whatever I wanted to, which is what I normally do anyway. And of course, the term "a dog's breakfast" is a term that people get used for something that's kind of like thrown together, left over, whatever, So it was kind of like this collection of tunes from all over the place. I did a cover of "Crazy" on that album. I did a cover of a beautiful tune by a jazz band called Steps Ahead, a tune called "Self-Portrait" on there. I used to do that in a band I was in back in the 80s, so it's the only reason why the tune really came to mind. I'd written a bunch of new tunes that were on there, so it was kind of all over the place. So, and Afraid to Dance, that last tune, I'm always very self-conscious about dancing. They say you should dance like nobody, you should dance as if nobody's watching, but I always know everybody's watching. So there you go. I'm always a little afraid to dance. Any other questions, Brooke?
Sure, yeah, there's a few. Jonas Marchinko would like to know, how do you structure your composing of a tune? Do you come up with a motif first, or rhythmic, or is it a melodic idea first? How do you kind of put things together in your head and then on the guitar?
Thanks for the question, Jonas. That's or Jonas. I'm not sure how you pronounce
Jonas,
it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a good question. It's a hard one to answer, but I'll say that overall, what I tend to do is I tend to think like a songwriter when I write tunes. So I tend to think in terms of sections. So I think of something like a verse. You can call it an A section if you want. I think of another section like the chorus. You can call that the B section if you want. And then very often, not always, but very often there's a third section, which usually gets called the bridge, which you can also think of as the C section. So most of the tunes tend to go A, so they sort of have two verses. Then they have the chorus, B. So there's the first part of the tune. Then I tend to go back to A and back to B again, and then I maybe go to C at that point. And then usually B, A, B, out. So that's the form most of my tunes take. So once again, it's A, A, B, A, B, C, B, A, B. That's kind of the rough sort of pattern that most of them follow. Now, in terms of motif and that kind of thing, usually things come from usually one of two places. Either I have a cool bass riff idea, like say if you think of my tune Dracula and Friends Part 1 and Part 2, they both started really with just bass riffs, and I built on that. I ended up sort of filling in the holes in the bass line. And then sometimes I have a very strong melodic idea. And then I start thinking, okay, I've got this cool melodic idea. What kind of harmonic underpinning will work with that? And of course, now I'm writing a lot of music for orchestra because I'm taking an orchestration master's degree, and I have to think in terms of all of these things, but also thinking in terms of how to voice chords so that they sound good with certain notes, say in the woodwinds, certain notes sounding better if they get placed in the brass, you know, maybe the low brass and the high woodwinds together, doubled in certain string parts. Having to think of all that, it's good that I play a harmonic instrument because it really helps me with orchestration. Hope that helps. I'll take one more question and then I'll play another tune. What have we got there, Brooke?
Brett Harold would like to know. Actually, sorry, before that, a gentleman named Rob Steinhardt had asked if you could kind of go through some of the fundamentals of learning Michael. He said he's been learning it for a while and he's having trouble just with some of the fundamental structure or the rhythmic stuff.
Okay.
He wanted to have a little more commentary on
Sure.
the fundamentals of that song.
There's a couple of parts of Michael that tend to give people the most trouble. So I'll look at those specifically just for a few minutes. So I have to get into the tuning first. Tuning's a bit of a hassle. So the tuning, it's kind of interesting because Afraid to Dance was in a tuning that was like an E7th without a third. And Michael is in a tuning that's like a C7th without a third. So. Okay, I'll turn my volume back up and let you hear it. Okay, so the tuning itself is from low to high, it's a C, a G on the 5th string, another C on the 4th string, and then on the 3rd string we stay at G, it's the only note that doesn't change. The 2nd string goes down to a B flat. And the high string goes all the way down to a C. So the two outside strings are tuned a major third lower than usual. That's why I say the tuning's a bit of a hassle. And I notice that my nails are not quite as round as they should be, so I'm just going to do this for a second. Now, the interesting thing about both Afraid to Dance and Michael, the rhythmic structure is based on what's called a swing 16th rhythm. So what that means is, if you think of regular time that you hear in most tunes, like if you hear a 4/4 song going like 1, 2, 3, 4, and very often the time is subdivided 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, or it might go as fast as 1 iana, 2 iana, 3 iana, 4 iana. So everything's sort of based on twos. So you either subdivide by 2 or multiply by 2. That's how the sort of Western music notation works, and the structure of a lot of music that's in 4/4 time is based on that subdivision of 2. Now, another way to subdivide the beat is in 3s. So you can think of it like a triplet feel. Now that's a lot more common in non-Western music. So if you go to Africa, for example, or India, it's very, very common to hear music that's subdivided into triplet feel. And we borrowed that a lot in North America. A lot of Black African music, of course, infused its way throughout our culture in North America. And that triplet feel seeps its way into everything, into the blues, and into jazz, and into hip hop. And so it's great. It's a great feel, because it's kind of interesting because people who live in Europe, for example, I've done a lot of touring in Europe, and very often find this feel really tricky. And I'll show you what I mean. So if you subdivide the beat like this, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, that's eighth notes. Okay, so you're taking 4 beats and you're turning them to 8 little beats. And then you can also feel like this. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. So you're subdividing into threes there. Then if you feel the first and third of those strongly and the second one weakly, it sounds like this. 1, 3, 1, 3, 1. Or sorry, I'll count it properly. 1, 3, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4, 3, like that. And that is called swing. So when you listen to jazz music very often swings in eighth notes. Underlying it, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, you always feel that triplet feel. Now with hip hop music, what it did is it took that triplet feel and double timed it. But also there are earlier examples of that. If you think of Superstition by Stevie Wonder, that has to swing really fast like that in order to sound right. So Michael does kind of the same thing. I borrowed the rhythm, didn't come out of my head. I'm influenced by all the music I've heard, especially music like this. So when you hear this, it's really important always to have that triplet feeling happening when you pick the part in your right hand. I've taught that piece to some people who are really having trouble with that underlying 16th triplet. So think about that all the time when you're learning it. The other things that people need to watch out for are especially this one section that a lot of people have trouble with. And a lot of it's based on that 16th rhythm that I'm doing in a very tricky way. So it's this thing. And I sort of did it at more or less performance speed there. But what I'm doing is I'm feeling each beat sometimes as 1, 3 with a weak 2, and sometimes I'm feeling all 3 little subdivisions, feeling all of them. But it's interesting, the way I'm doing it is my right hand is doing this, 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So it's doing the ones and threes, the triplets. And then what's usually the weak beat, the second one, I'm filling in with a hammer-on and a pull-off in my left hand. So it's like 1, 2, and 3, 4 and so 1, 2, and 3, 4 and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4 and 1. So my right hand is really just doing the swing eighth notes, da, dee, da, dee, da, dee, da, like that. And it doesn't speed up. A lot of people think I'm doing this. I'm not. That would sound too much like a machine gun, right? It's way more relaxed sounding if you do it as a hammer-on pull-off thing. So that's the part that 9 people out of 10 who are having trouble playing that tune have the most trouble with. So I hope that really helps. I'll do it one more time slowly, okay? So here it is in context. Slowly. Slower. Okay, so that's how that little thing works. I hope that really helps. Is there still a volume issue?
Yeah, my mic needs to come up a little bit by request because they love the sound of my voice.
How's that? That should help.
Is that better, guys? Can you hear questions okay?
All right.
Not that, not that I'm the feature. Okay, so Bruce Head, let me know if you can hear the questions better now with the mic up. Do you want to do another question or you want to do a song?
I'll do a tune.
Okay, so do you want to take a request?
Oh, I'll try.
Okay, so a couple weeks back when we did this before, Mark Thomas requested First Ride and we didn't get to it, so we better do this for Mark.
Faithful fan. Okay. Oh, good. It's funny. I was thinking I should, didn't I? Yeah, I did replace that string. I did replace that string. Let me just double check that. I thought I did. Unless I'm hallucinating again. I did not change that string. What a silly boy. Okay. Well, you get to see me do my quick lickety-split string change. One of the advantages of the guitars I get made, my guitars are made by a guy named Mark Beneteau, who's based in St. Thomas, Ontario. And he makes them with this thread-through bridge. You can see I can just thread the string through, and I don't have to struggle with bridge pins. I just have to struggle with the fact that I have to look under my glasses to thread through there. But anyway, there we go, we got it. And so it makes string change on stage when I have to do it, when it's an unfortunate necessity, a lot quicker than it is otherwise. Very often if you have bridge pins, you know, those pins in your bridge that you have to pull out, they're really awkward when you break a string. Very often people have to take a short break and then run off stage or hand the guitar to their guitar tech to have it fixed. All right, so this tune I'm going to play for you, I wrote many years ago. I wrote it in 1983. And I wrote it reflecting back on the very first time I ever went horseback riding, which was maybe one of the more humiliating experiences of my life. And so it was terrifying. So they thought it was a smart idea to put me on the pregnant horse because she hadn't trotted in a long time, hadn't galloped in a long time. Sure enough, I got on this horse and she rediscovered her maiden vigor and went on this terrifying ride through the forest, having to duck branches and whatnot. All right. So the tuning for this one is really cool. I won't go too long into it. But the top four strings make a C chord. So C, G, C, E. Then the A string stays where it usually is at A. And the bottom string goes all the way up to an F. So it goes up a semitone, up a semitone from its normal pitch. So what we end up with is a C chord in the top four strings, an F major chord in the bottom three strings. The top five strings make an A minor seventh chord. And if you play all six strings together, you get this gorgeous thing called an F major ninth chord. A really nice voicing of it too. It's even better when it's in tune. So, no guarantees my top string will make it in tune all the way through the piece, but I'll try my best. This is called the first ride. Yes, siree. That was the first ride. And I hope you enjoyed that one. Yes, Brooke Miller, my better half, far better half, and I have been working for the last several months on creating content for something that's going to go online. We were hoping it would go online this summer. It's just best laid plans. It's a monstrous amount of work to create these videos, but we're going to be going online soon with something called the Don Ross Guitar Academy. So I'm going to create with Brooke, she's shooting them and recording them and we're editing them together. We're going to create a whole pile of online sort of short lessons that can take you through all the various stages of guitar learning. So we've been working on the beginning lessons, so you know, for people who need to know which end of the guitar to blow into and that kind of thing, and then moving on from there, getting you started, and then we'll create some intermediate stuff. We'll save the expert stuff for a little later because that's not so many people, and there are tablatures and things like that you can already order on my website, which is right here on the left-hand corner of your screen, donrossonline.com. And that other thing, Brooke, I was asked not to do that this time. And, oh, we will be doing another show. Oh gosh, I forgot to write the date down. Let me just check on my computer here and see if I can figure out what dates we're going to be doing these things. There's two little cool things coming up. Pardon my lean here. They are coming up on, right. Okay, so a week from tonight, on the 22nd, same time, so 7 o'clock Eastern time, going to be doing a special workshop that, again, through Dalhousie University, on how to do this, how to live stream a concert. Because, you know, in this day and age, who knows how long we'll be in this situation. This has been the best way to sort of reach fans directly, play music for them. It's a live experience. I mean, if I make a mistake, I make a mistake, right? And so it's for reals. And so, and it's cool. And I also, people were worried about Facebook maybe taking these live concerts down. That's not true. They just don't want people to be playing a lot of recorded music in their live feeds. So when you play live, that's a whole different banana, and that's cool. And of course, YouTube, no problem, blah, blah, blah. So going to be doing this again a week from tonight, same time of night. And it's going to be how to put this together, basically how to sort of put the technology together, what software to use, what hardware to use, how to get your signal from your camera onto the stream, and how to get your sound onto the stream so that it looks and sounds nice. You know, this is not Hollywood fancy schmancy, but this picture is clear and the sound is pretty good, you know. So I know that's not as easy to do as you might think. So happy to do that. And the next night, so a week from tomorrow, Brooke Miller and I will be doing a duet show. So that's another thing to look forward to. Okay, questions, Brooke?
Yeah, just on, can you hear me better? It was too loud and then it was too soft.
It's always too something. It's like, I've got to get the Goldilocks thing going on.
Right, so just on the heels of First Ride there, Luciano Mastesi wanted to know about, for example, First Ride, how you go about choosing the tuning for a specific song.
Is your on switch on?
The on switch is on.
Okay, it just seems really quiet. Okay, so
Bump up the volume.
okay, let's try this one more time.
It's turned away from the mic.
Yeah, you gotta talk right into it. Okay, so I guess the question was, how do I come up with the tuning for something like First Ride? Is that the question? Well, that song in particular, what I was trying to do is I was trying to write kind of a tribute to Bruce Cockburn, who's a guitar hero of mine that I started listening to as a teenager. And he's a Canadian guitarist. If you haven't heard of him, check out his music. He's been at it now for over 50 years. He's just one of our treasures in Canada. Great guitar player, great songwriter. And I discovered his music, and one of the first things I heard was a solo guitar instrumental called Foxglove. And it's in an open C tuning. So I learned it off the record when I was a kid. And then years later, I wanted to, when I wrote that particular one, I was thinking about that horse ride, but I was also thinking, I want to write sort of an answer to Bruce's tune. So I I decided I was going to write it in the same tuning. So I started writing it in C tuning, open C tuning, the same one he does, which is like this. There's a C on the bottom, and then a G. Otherwise, it's the same. So it's an open C chord. It's a C major chord. And Bruce's tune starts like this. Like that kind of thing. And it's got that swing rhythm to it again. There's that swing thing happening again. So I thought, well, I'll write it in swing feel and I'll write it in C tuning, and then it'll be kind of reminiscent of his tune. And then I decided, no, I don't want it to sound quite the same. I want to be able to go other places, and I had these other compositional ideas. So I ended up changing the tuning to those bottom two strings so I could get more open bass strings to go to. And also it worked out really nicely with the melody, as a harmony to what was already happening in the C tuning. So like I explained, you ended up with all those chords, that were available. And it just seemed like, I thought that I had won the Nobel Tuning Prize when I was 22 years old when I wrote the tune. And yes. Also, yes, in addition to what I'm doing with the demonstration next week, and Brooke is doing a show with me on the 23rd, Brooke is also doing her own solo show on the 30th, so a week from next Wednesday. Same location here at the same time, 8 o'clock Atlantic, 7 o'clock Eastern time. And so, anyway, lots to look forward to, lots of live streaming shows this month. Cool. I'll take one more question and play another tune for you. Just got to find the question.
Yeah, there's a few, and I have to scroll back.
Sure.
So, do you have, oh no, let's go back here. Sorry guys. Oh, here's a good question from Michael McKenna. What's the story behind Everybody Lies? And why did you choose to cover it?
Well, Everybody Lies is a song that I've recorded twice now. I put it on an album back in the 90s the album's called Three Hands. Did it with a full band that time. And I put it on my last studio album. The album's called A Million Brazilian Civilians. You can order it here at donrossonline.com. And the song was originally written by Leo Kottke. Leo Kottke, who just turned 75 the other day. Holy smokes, just time is zipping by. Leo Kottke is another guy. I discovered his music. I discovered the music of Joni Mitchell, Bruce Cockburn, and Leo Kottke kind of all around the same time, within a year or so of each other. And collectively, they kind of changed my life. They made me want to play acoustic guitar in a style, not unlike theirs. That said, the three of them have very different styles. And Leo's style is kind of this really big, very sort of chunky, heavy sound. It's amazing. Like nobody plays like him. And I was never trying to play like him either. But I did cover a few of his tunes, his instrumental tunes, when I was younger. Just more as a technical challenge. I didn't really play them live. But then I started incorporating more vocal music in my show. And I always loved that song. So I had this tuning that I had used for a piece called Thin Air, that I ended up adapting that song to fit that tuning. And it worked really well. So I was really happy with it. So I don't really know. I don't think the song makes much sense. The lyrics are really weird. Maybe Leo one day, next time I see him, I'll get him to explain what the lyric could possibly mean in that song. But pessimistic title, but cool name. Cool song. Okay, I'll play a tune here. This is a crowd favorite, so I figure I better play it. So this tune is in the tuning D-A-D, and then G-C-E. So it's like a little C chord on the top three strings, and then D-A-D on the bottom. So together it's what's called like a D11 chord. So if I do this, I get a D major. But this particular tune's in D minor, and it's called Dracula and Friends Part 1. Dracula and Friends, Part 1. And there is a Part 2. Speaking of parts, I would be remiss if I didn't play one of my other guitars that I've dragged out. So let me do that. I'm going to put this one down and pick up this rather crazed looking thing here, on this stand. And we'll see how this goes. This thing, also made by my good friend Mark Beneteau, is called a harp guitar. And so this is always a good educational opportunity to play this thing. I'll just get the right channel up here. Okay. And make sure it's plugged in. Yeah, it's all good. Okay, so this crazy contraption, and Brooke, you may have to adjust the camera here. Yeah, actually, have to get you to point it down a bit. So, this crazy thing has a regular guitar here. Brooke's just going to adjust the camera a little bit. There we go, so you can see everything a little better. This part of the guitar is a normal guitar. I actually have it tuned to standard tuning, so there's an E chord, good old familiar E chord.
Want me to zoom in at all?
No, that's good. And then over here we have 6 floating strings. Now they're called floating because they don't have frets behind them. They're just free floating strings, and so they're like harp strings. Harp strings do the same thing. They're basically the pitch is determined simply by their length. You can't make them shorter with frets, so you are basically in a like a Celtic harp, you tune it to those notes and they stay put. Sometimes they have levers on them, so you can sharpen them by a semitone. And an orchestral harp works differently. They use pedals, and you raise and lower the pitches with the pedals. But on this is a harp guitar. I don't have any sharpening levers on this, like some harp guitars do. And it's got 6 what are called contrabass strings. So I can tune them to whatever I want. So for this particular tune I'm going to play for you, I have the bottom string tuned to a G sharp, really low. So it's a nice, beautiful bass string. The next note, the 5th bass string, is an A. Then we have a B. And then I have a C sharp. And then a D. And a G. Now, it may seem random, but it works really well for this particular song. This tune I'm going to play for you is an arrangement of an old Philadelphia soul song from the 60s. Actually, it was probably written in the 60s and then it became a big hit in the 70s for a band called the Stylistics. And eventually Prince even recorded a version of this song. Beautiful song, written by Tom Bell and Linda Creed, like I said, sometime in the late 60s. Philadelphia soul was sort of a whole other kettle of fish to what was going on in Detroit, for example, with Motown. Just a different scene, slightly different sound, and a lot of ballads like this next beautiful song. So the tune has the ridiculous title, Betcha by Golly Wow. And it goes like this. The tuning, I wanted to explain. The bottom 5 strings basically are kind of in the key of E major. So we have, there's E, that's the key I'm going to be in for some of the song. So it goes 3, 4, 5 of that key, and even C sharp. That's like the 6 of E. And then the top 2 strings I have D, G. So that's like 5, 1 of G, because the other part of the tune is in G. So the tuning works perfectly. I can play a lot of the roots of the chords that are in the 2 keys. All right. So this is Betcha by Golly Wow. I haven't played it in a while. It's going to be rusty. I practiced it today, but you never know. And so this is Tom Bell and Linda Creed. Yeah, that one got better as it went along. Live. Hope you enjoyed that. Oh, any questions about the harp guitar before I put it away? Should ask. Any specific questions about the harp guitar? Anybody? Anyway, these instruments got really popular in the 18th century in Italy. I think they were kind of the guitar answer to the theorbo, which is a lute with extra bass strings. So there are pictures of theorbos on the internet. You should look it up. I don't even know how to spell it. Theorbo, Theorbo, or something like that. And some of them are like, they look like they're 12 feet long. They're crazy. I don't know how you put them in a case. But I think maybe guitar players are feeling inadequate or something. So these things came along. And they were really popular. Turn of the 20th century, there was a large, of course, European migration to North America. And a lot of Europeans were fond of having like guitar orchestras and mandolin orchestras and things like that, very geeky things. And of course, you know, it's the age before TV and radio, so you had to make your own entertainment. So so a lot of guitar orchestras, you can see these pictures, old pictures from the early 20th century of guitar orchestras, and there's usually some schmuck in the back who has to play one of these tubby things. And that person got to be the bass player for the band. So yeah, so that's the harp guitar. Anything specific about that, Brooke?
No.
Nothing coming up? Okay. Oh, I'll play the baritone guitar then. A couple of tunes to close out the night on the baritone.
I do have a couple questions.
Yes. Please fire away. Oh, we'll have to readjust that camera too when you get a chance. Brooke's looking up questions, so I'll be the cameraman here and adjust this guy a little bit. No, it's okay. Make myself useful for once. All right. That should work.
Okay, here one from GD. This is going back a little ways.
Okay.
Any advice for becoming a more consistent player? There are songs that are just difficult to make it through without mistakes. How do you work out sections that may be challenging for you?
Usually my number one piece of advice to people learning anything on the guitar, but especially trying to make your way through a piece of music from beginning to end and trying to make it so that you make as few mistakes as possible. Hell, I've been playing guitar for 50 years. I still make lots of mistakes. So don't worry too much about it. It's not like you're the only one making mistakes. But the important thing to do is, let's say you're learning a piece and you've got part of it down. You know, part of it is just like, no problem, I can play that part. Everything's cool. But then you go to play this other section of the piece, and it's like, it doesn't matter, you just keep flubbing it, every time you get there. Well, what I usually tell people is the most important thing to do is only to play the piece as rapidly as you can play the most challenging part, if that makes sense. So in other words, if the first part of the piece, let's say, you just rattle through it, no problem, everything's cool, and then the second part of the piece, you're making mistakes left, right, and center, fine. Slow down the second part of the tune, but also slow down the first part. Because the important thing is that you learn to play the whole tune at the same tempo. So the problem with the way a lot of people learn tunes is that, and this goes on any instrument, is that they'll play the parts they know really well at one speed, and the parts they don't know that well at a slower speed. And then you end up with this really uneven performance. And what would be better if you could just force yourself to relax and say, okay, I can play the A section at 100 beats per minute, but the B section I have to slow down to 75 beats per minute or I'm going to screw it up. Well, then play the whole tune at 75. And then slowly, as you get more confidence, bring the BPM up a little bit at a time. Don't try to just charge into full speed. It's just not going to work. And you'll just end up getting frustrated. You know, it's a bit like what we're going through right now. We keep trying to start getting back to normal, and we keep screwing it up and having to sort of take steps back. Well, it's the same thing if you're learning an instrument or if you're learning a tune and you already play. It's easy to just keep making the same mistakes if you don't address the fact that you're trying to plow through too quickly. All right, so I hope that helps. Anything else, Brooke? Lots of questions.
Oh, here's an important one. Gabrielle Cifuentes wanted to ask, how do you deal with problems like tinnitus in your hands and
Oh, tendinitis, yeah.
tendinitis, not tinnitus. Yeah, so how do you deal with muscle and tendon
Yeah,
issues?
good question. I had really severe tendinitis problems for a few years. I remember I was 41 years old. I was on tour here in Nova Scotia. And it was a tough time where I just kind of felt like I had to say yes to every gig that came along just to keep myself busy. And I just did too many shows. I was just doing too much touring, which I guess is a problem, a good problem to have, but it's a problem. And because it takes a toll on your body, doesn't matter how good you try to be to yourself, you never get enough sleep, you never get enough, you're doing too much driving, you're too stiff and all this kind of stuff, and you're playing too much. So I woke up just around the corner here on the other side of the bay from where we currently live. My friend Chip had a place over there, and so I woke up one morning at Chip's place, and my right elbow right here was inflamed. I could feel it. It was so painful. It felt like somebody had stabbed me there. And I immediately thought, I know what this is. I know what this is, because I had lots of music friends who had gotten really severe tendinitis in their elbows, and then it spread to other parts of their arms. So if you play the violin or you play the guitar or whatever, instruments where you're doing a lot of this and you're sort of holding your arms up, you're a great candidate for tendinitis. Now, I talked to a lot of people, including a sports doctor, about tendinitis. And the one piece of advice that they all gave me is whatever gave you tendinitis, you got to stop doing it for a while. So when you're a full-time guitar player, that is challenging, because then you start thinking, how am I going to pay the bills? So what I decided to do is I decided that I would never play the guitar except when I had to. So I wouldn't practice, I wouldn't warm up, nothing. And that sounds almost counterintuitive, but it saved the day. I found that just the fact that I was only playing an hour and a half or whatever on stage per night really calmed things down. And what ended up happening was, and this is the weird thing about tendinitis, maybe you've noticed this, when you've got tendinitis and you do the thing that gave you tendinitis, the pain goes away. and then as soon as you stop, it all comes back. It's really weird. It's like a bad drug, you know. You can't get rid of this thing where you feel so good when you do the thing you're not supposed to be doing. And so that was really weird. At least that was my experience. So whenever I played guitar, pain-free, everything was great. As soon as I stopped, ouch, you know. And I've had friends who couldn't, ended up being so bad they couldn't lift their arms and stuff like that, and ended up in traction and all kinds of stuff. So don't overdo it. The biggest problem with a lot of people's idea about practicing is they think you have to practice millions of hours a day, every day for years and stuff. That's actually really bad for you. You have to find a reasonable amount of practice so that you get better and better at your instrument, but you don't hurt yourself. And I know lots of musicians, I won't bother naming them, but some of them are very famous, who have ended up getting things like focal dystonia, which is not a country in Europe. It's a serious problem where basically the nerves in your hands stop being able to communicate with your brain, and your brain is not be able to send signals to move your fingers a certain way. And usually, if you're right-handed and you play this way, it usually affects your left hand. So there's many guitarists I can think of off the top of my head, 3 or 4 of them, well-known, internationally known players, who either had to adapt to a different style of playing or had to stop. For the most part, either they became much more reliant on their singing, or they had to play a different way, or they had to start playing more percussion on stage, and then just only playing guitar sometimes. So it's a weird situation. So you don't want to go there. So don't over practice. It's that simple, unfortunately. All right, one more question. I'll play one more tune.
Here's a good one.
Yes.
There's a lot of questions I can't get to. I'm sorry, guys, but we'll do this again. So make sure that you come back and.
You've got no level. Why is that? Okay, keep. Yeah, just nothing. Go. Okay.
Collie J. McWork would like to know, who is your biggest inspiration and who are your top 5 metal or modern guitar players?
Wow. Okay. My big inspirations, believe it or not, for the most part, are not guitar players. But in the guitar world, I would say those three I mentioned earlier: Leo Kottke, Joni Mitchell, Bruce Cockburn. And then, as far as acoustic guitar players, later on, people like John Renbourn, I got to know his music. And then Michael Hedges, Alex DeGrassi, and Egberto Gismonge. He's a great Brazilian guitarist. And then in terms of modern players, on the acoustic side, I'm a big fan of Callum Graham, Andy McKee, Jimmy Wallstein, Antoine Dufour, Justin Saint-Pierre. And then in terms of non-acoustic players, I'd have to go with Pat Metheny, number one for sure. And then, there's a few other classic players like John McLaughlin and people like that who played the electric, Eric Johnson, very inspiring players. Admittedly, I will admit I'm not too up on modern electric playing, who's current. I kind of lost track of it. I listen to all kinds of music, and I listen to a lot of new music, but I've never really sought out guitar music that much. So just because I like music played on any instrument, it really doesn't matter what instrument it's played on. I play the guitar because it's a good touring instrument, and I got really good at it. But I've never been a guitar head, I think the guitar is a great instrument, but I like all kinds of music. Okay.
I have another really
Yes.
important question.
Yes.
A few people have asked this, and I think it's important to touch base on the fan fret situation over here.
Okay, so a question about the fan fret guitars. You'll notice that all three of these guitars I've played tonight have fan frets. This one has very fan frets, okay? So this particular one is a baritone guitar, so it's tuned a fourth lower than normal. So my bottom string, instead of being an E, is now a B, so it's a fourth lower than normal. And all the strings are a fourth lower. So that the standard tuning would be, in this case, B, E, A, D, F sharp, and B. Okay? And so that what that means is it's a transposing instrument. So if I play what looks like an E chord, on this guitar it's actually a B chord. I'm still out of tune, but... And in other instrument families, that's very normal, like in saxophones and clarinets and horns and this kind of thing. In the brass and woodwind world, it's really, really common to play a transposing instrument, as it's called. Even in the strings, the violin, when you read the violin, it's in standard, treble clef and actual pitch. The viola, you have this funny key, the funny clef that you have to read. And it's written a seventh away from, it looks like it's written a seventh away from a violin, and then a cello is written in bass clef, and then an upright bass is also written in bass clef but sounds an octave lower than the cello. It's all very confusing. So there are transposing instruments across all the instrument families, and this is an example of a transposing guitar. And they're by the same token, there are guitars that are very short scale that are tuned up to an A or something with 6 strings. They're not ukuleles, they're actually guitars. So there are transposing guitars. Now, when you tune the guitar really low, like this one, there are a lot of disadvantages to playing with straight frets. And a lot of them, the biggest disadvantages are the fact that the strings get so thick on the bottom. Like this is a 66 gauge string, and normally on a regular guitar, my normal guitars have a 56 gauge string on there. And some people use lighter than that, 54, 52. So the problem with that is that it's such a big thick cable that as you go up the neck, it tends to go sharp, just because there's so much mass, and you're going over a fret that's in the same place basically as one for your skinniest string. So it's better to space the frets out a little farther apart from each other on the bottom end. So this is a really great way of solving that problem, because as the strings get thicker, they also get longer. So that means that the strings tend to play better in tune. Now, you're never really, really, really in tune on the guitar, ever. I mean, on instrument. I mean, every instrument basically plays out of tune a little bit, and you have to adjust your playing a little bit to try to keep in tuning. So it's weird to begin with, but this solves a lot of that problem. You're playing less out of tune than you would be normal. The other advantage too is that the bottom strings are so long that you can tune them really low. I don't even know where I am anymore. That's a low F sharp. So that's, no, it's a low A. Is that right? Wait a second. No, it's a low F sharp. So that is an entire fourth lower than I was already tuned, which is a fourth lower than normal. So it's crazy. That's a crazy low note. But okay, it's starting to flop around a little bit, but I can still hear the fundamental, that really low note. Okay, and then, so there's a really low G. So you can tune these bottom strings, and it's the same with a fan fret regular pitch guitar. You can tune your bottom string, say it's normally at an E. I sometimes tune it down to a B or an A, and it still sounds like something. It doesn't just sound like a floppy elastic band on your guitar. Awesome. So those are the main reasons for the fan fret. Plus it looks cool. Right? Alrighty, I'm going to play one more tune.
When is the next show again? You and I are doing.
Right, okay, so just to recap. Next week, a week from tonight, I'm going to do a how to stream a concert workshop at 7 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Atlantic. And so same time frame as we did this week. And I'll show you my gear, and I'll show you how to get it done, and what the better kinds of software you can use, that kind of junk. And then the next night, the 23rd, then Brooke Miller and I are going to do a duo concert for you. It'll be fun. And then also Brooke Miller is going to do a solo show as part of this series for Dalhousie University on the 30th of September. So that would be a week from tomorrow, I think, if I got it right. Or 2 weeks from tomorrow. 2 weeks from tomorrow, sorry. Getting all the weeks mixed up. All right, great. Well, it's been really nice to be with you. Thanks very much to Professor Doug Reach at the Dalhousie University here in Halifax. Thanks to all the students who tuned in, and thanks to all the fans who tuned in all over the place. It's been really nice to see you again. We're making this a regular thing, and I'm really enjoying it. You know, it's the closest thing to touring I've been able to. I've done like one live show since March, and it was just back in August. I did an outdoor socially distanced show in Lunenburg down the road here, and that was amazing. It sort of felt like I felt like I was going back to my old school I went to when I was in kindergarten or something. Just like the before times, you know. But this has been an awesome way to replace it, at least. It's kind of weird that there's no audience, but I know you're out there, and I know you're enjoying it, and you're listening, and you've been very supportive. So thanks very much. Keep it up. Visit my website if you want to. There's cool t-shirts, there's LPs, there's all kinds of junk there. Okay? So we'll see you again next week. Same time, same station, for the workshop and the concert with Brooke. Okay. Better mute my microphone or else I breathe all the Yabba dabba doo. Thanks everyone for being here. Thanks very much to Brooke for fielding your questions, and thanks for your questions. They were great. Anyway, good luck to everybody who's starting their year at Dalhousie University, and good luck in the guitar program and in the rest of your studies. And I'm a fellow student myself this year, so I know how it feels. Okay, so keep up the good work, and we'll see you soon. All right, thanks everybody for watching. See you next time.